Welcome to this sci-fi session. I am Cristina Riesen, the founder and the CEO of Educreators Foundation from Switzerland. We are an impact network focusing on education innovation.
Very cool. My name is Maniam. I'm the Deputy Secretary covering international and industry issues at the Ministry of Communications and Information in Singapore. Essentially, I think a lot about what are the opportunities that might come from the digital space, both in the economy as well as society and internationally. And I work with various teams to try and realize those opportunities while also managing the risks involved in technology.
Aaron, wouldn't you say it's an exciting time to be an entrepreneur? Because on one hand, there are so many opportunities today. At the same time, so many challenges. And I find as an entrepreneur myself, especially as a social entrepreneur, it is not easy to somehow make sense of the noise or to decide which is that one single problem that I should focus on and that I should try to solve. Personally, I try to zoom in on education and innovation, emerging technologies. However, I can imagine for my fellow entrepreneurs around the world, it must be very challenging. So I was wondering, what is your take on this? Or how do you encourage your entrepreneurs in Singapore to focus on certain topics?
It's such a great question, and I agree fully with you, Cristina. It is a very exciting time to be an entrepreneur. We in Singapore try and help from the government perspective by creating an integrated ecosystem within which startups as well as SMEs can hopefully make better sense of this very turbulent and unpredictable field that's technology, and hopefully be able to make the most of those opportunities. We find that we need to offer several bits of support that bring together the different parts of the ecosystem. So our Infocom and Media Development Authority, for instance, runs a program called SMEs Go Digital, where they support the transformation process for different SMEs as they're trying to try out new technologies or try out experiments, right, with new forms of digital platforms. We try and offer support in terms of what we call a Chief Technology Officer as a service program as well. Now there's a lot of things that are offered as a service, right? So we try and offer the CTO support as well. Some of this is a searchable database that people can go to with questions that they might have. But for those with more complex and more sophisticated needs, they can actually meet up with groups of technology experts from a couple of different companies. These are ones who have had lots of experience in supporting startups and SMEs. And we find that having access to them allows those startups with more complex needs to actually meet those different needs that they have. And then for the really, really progressive firms, the ones who've already made significant strides and progress in the digital sphere, we run something called the Digital Leaders Program, which allows them to actually deepen their expertise, meet other like-minded folks, and form the kind of impact network that you described, right? Where with like-minded people, there can be mutual learning and a process by which they sharpen each other's swords and refine each other's methods. So it sounds like we're dealing with very similar spaces, but starting from different perspectives.
Absolutely. And it is highly interesting the way you're going about it. I really, really appreciate very much, because entrepreneurs, they need today, not only, first of all, to define the big problem they would like to solve, but then they need all the support from the ecosystem players. The government, of course, is very important, and smart money. So it is no longer about just getting funding, right? It is about being connected to the right communities, having a multi-stakeholder engagement. And this is something that can be sometimes very challenging, especially, if you're just getting started. So your network is probably not so big. And also you may lack knowledge in certain areas of expertise. So tapping into this pool of knowledge, of experts, of people who actually are in decision-making positions and can understand and can facilitate and support grow your products or services is extremely important. I was wondering, when we look at digitalization, digital transformation, what do you see as main hurdles from your side?
Wow, that's a great question. I can think of two actually that are super critical. I'm curious what it's like for you and your group in Switzerland as well. I think one is something you mentioned earlier. It's finding the right problems to work on, right? What are the most meaningful and impactful areas that people can actually work on, where we can harness technology to actually result in the sorts of positive outcomes we're looking for. In Singapore, we try to help with this process through a program we call the Open Innovation Platform. It's essentially an open innovation network where we match problem providers with solution providers. So it might be a company or possibly even a government agency that has a particular set of issues that they want tackled. So you know that these are meaningful problems and not just things that people hypothesize about. But where the startups and SMEs play a really important role is they come in with really creative solutions. And they know that these are interesting because they are actual problems that have been identified by actual clients, so to speak. So this open innovation platform is something we're quite proud of because we find that it helps to, by doing this process of matching between problem providers and solution providers, we ensure that it is actually meaningful stuff that's being done, and the outcomes therefore can focus on achieving, as much positive result as possible in response to the different challenges that people face. The other issue that I thought would be useful to mention, and again, I'm curious how you're dealing with this in the network that you're in, is talent, right? Access to the right talent, I think, is going to be increasingly key. Part of this means involving as many different parts of the system as possible. It means tapping into as many women as possible, for instance, to make sure that we don't let the immense talent amongst young women especially go to waste in the technology field. Thankfully, here in Singapore, we're not doing too badly. We've got about women making up 41% of the tech workforce, which we know is above the global average of 28%, but we can do better, and we want to keep doing better, right? Offering the right scholarships, the right mentorship, the right connecting platforms for young women who want to play in the digital space. But we also want to think about talent more broadly, right? And we try and start very early by making sure that even in primary school, students go through coding programs. In secondary school, that they go through extracurricular activities that expose them to technology. And in university and beyond, that they're exposed to the right technological skills to enable them to play in a world where the digital space is just changing and evolving so fast. So those are the two issues I think are the most challenging: talent and identifying the right problems to deal with.
I couldn't agree more. And Switzerland was for a long time known for its watches and chocolate, but today it is also known for innovation, and we rank usually quite high on innovation, and this is also due because we have a vibrant ecosystem where on one hand there's world-leading cutting-edge research. We have one of the best tech universities in the world. We have then an emerging, I would say, generation of very hungry entrepreneurs who really are ambitious. They want to solve big problems. And then we have also the ecosystem, the supporting ecosystem, the government, and I would say also, the private public partnerships in place that allow us also to move fast. And it is really interesting to hear you talk about talent, because I think this is really such a big topic and a big challenge for everybody today, right?
Yep.
And I would say for us as entrepreneurs, in the end, it is really, really important to have the possibility to connect beyond our national borders. So something that I think Switzerland does really well is building these bridges and connecting, and also, trying to tap into the global talent pool and making sure that we, again, not only collaborate, but also we are able to start building solutions together, right? It's really important that we are not keeping it at the conceptual level, but we actually find ways to make these partnerships, work in practice.
Sorry, go on.
Go ahead. No. So I would say, it is really, I see a lot of similarities between Switzerland and Singapore. And I think being here at CyFy and listening also to the speakers today, it couldn't be more exciting. And I think it's really some sort of a turning point. And all of us coming together, it means, I would say, and it signals that we are ready. We have so many experts who are coming together, who are embracing the same values, who care for the greater good, who want to make the world a better place.
Yep.
And it's the right time to start doing things together.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with that. I think it's a really important thing that these, broad ideas around tech translate to concrete outcomes that create better lives, right, for citizens and for consumers. And I agree with you very much about the cross-border partnerships that are so critical to underpin these collaborations. I wanted to share a couple of examples actually on this front, because Singapore's trying to experiment where we can, particularly with other parts of ASEAN in this process. And one of these is where we're trying to develop what we call trade trust, right? A system of trusted technology that actually allows for different agents engaging in trade relationships to be much more assured about various aspects of the transactions. So the trade trust kind of product really is to provide industry with a means to verify, first of all, the authenticity and the source of a document, so that we enable the digitalization of transferable documents into electronic transferable records, right, that can move across borders. And then we want to ensure that this system has the legal ability to effect title transfers, right? And the core of this is that it uses decentralized identifiers and digital signatures to verify sources and authenticity, and it uses blockchain to create non-fungible tokens that represent title ownership and enable transfers from one party to the next. What I think this really does is it takes the theory of international trade and brings it into the digital space, right? And it allows us to actually use this as a way to enable trading interactions, which otherwise would have taken lots of paper and lots of time and aren't as useful as a system that is actually enabled by digital technology. Underpinning all of this, of course, is that the data needs to move freely and in a flowing way, right, across different borders. And I think data is another area where actually there are very concrete areas where different countries and different economies can collaborate precisely to achieve the sort of outcomes that you mentioned. In ASEAN, one thing that we've developed is a data management framework that allows small companies, especially SMEs and startups, to implement data management systems that enhance the organizational accountability that they might have. The framework provides data governance structure guidelines and also gives guidelines on appropriate data protection safeguards so that companies can actually engage in high levels of practice rather than starting out and making mistakes that could have been avoided if they just learned from other experiences. We complement this framework with a series of what we call model contractual clauses, or MCCs. And these are templates of contractual terms and conditions that businesses can use in their binding legal agreements with others. And this helps to facilitate the transfer of personal data across the different companies and across borders. Again, with the MCCs, what we're trying to do is shorten the learning curve of different companies so that they can use the templates to move straight into transactions and not worry about whether the template is actually legally accurate or not, because it's already been stress tested and already been quality controlled by different entities and experts. So when we put these together, what we find is it's really useful as a base from which companies can then build even further. And we hope that this will help startups to especially, right, to be able to learn faster and move more quickly in the digital space.
Absolutely, this is fascinating. And this is the good side of emerging technologies, isn't it? I mean, they can help us in so many dimensions of our society, e-government, and also in my case, looking at education and education technologies, as you can imagine, enabling and empowering people with personalized learning journeys and, tapping into their potential holds a great promise for the future. So, it's going to be exciting times ahead for sure.
I think
and
so.
We're mentioning also, we are, of course, in a position to make decisions around data privacy, data security. This is very important. And I would say this co-creation, so involving entrepreneurs and we're working together, understanding, ways in which products can be built or must be built early on, so that we can actually all contribute to a respectful use of data, right? And that we care about privacy is very important.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I think, privacy is going to be key, and also how we balance that privacy with the need for data innovation, right? Legitimate data used by companies that have good intentions and want to actually create better services for consumers. And then data security as well, right? Making sure that the data infrastructure and the data itself is secure, particularly given the increasing proliferation of cyber hacking and other breaches of that data. I think if we think of it as a trio of factors, right, this triumvirate of considerations around privacy, data innovation, and security, then I think we end up with a really interesting and very nuanced look at how to manage the data in the best possible way. And again, the model contractual clauses and the data management framework that I mentioned that we use in ASEAN has helped us to achieve at least the minimum standards of what that looks like. And it's not required any of our member states in ASEAN to undertake any legislative change. So everybody's using existing provisions, but just setting the right standards for one another.
We are coming slowly to an end of our session, and I was wondering if you would like to somehow, envision the future, the world that you would like to live in, let's say 10 years from now. Yeah. How would that world look like?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think a lot of it will be about trust. I think if we want to really harness some of the potential of the technologies that are out there, we need to know that we can trust the tech and that we can trust the users of that tech. And so the more we find ways to enable greater trusting relationships and interactions across different sectors, and across businesses and consumers, and between governments and stakeholders, the more rich the outcomes could be. Once we have that base of trust in place, I think we can then really achieve some of the potential abundance and generativity of digital resources, because we're moving way beyond the traditional notions of scarcity in orthodox economics. What we're dealing with is a world where there's digital proliferation, and that can either go well, right, if we build up the right levels of trust and we have technology that enables trust, or it can go really badly if the technology ends up dividing and fragmenting societies. And I very much hope that the kinds of approaches that you and I have talked about today, Cristina, will allow us to achieve some of the better outcomes, right, and manage the upside, as well as governing some of the risks and minimizing them.
As an entrepreneur, I wish to see definitely in the future as well, global strategic partnerships emerging, a lot of co-creation. Co-creation, as said, entrepreneurs need from the very beginning to be connected to the government, to be connected to their future customers, to other businesses. This is very important, not only on a national level, but also internationally. Yep. And then I really believe in human empowerment. So I believe, and my vision of the world in 10 years from now is a world where every human being can fulfill their potential, and where we can co-create, design a world that we are proud of. So I really, really enjoyed our conversation today and being at CyFy together with you. It is a wonderful, very valuable conference. So thank you so much to the organizers for allowing us to meet here virtually. And then I cannot wait to reconnect and hopefully to co-create in the future.
That sounds great. And we'll co-create, we'll empower and build on the trusting relationships. I think that sounds like a great future to head towards.